You are on Africa 24 English. Thank you for joining us. Today, for this special edition of the interview, we are joined by Mrs. Kanayo Awani, Executive Vice President of Afreximbank, and together we will discuss the vision of One Global Africa. Mrs. Kanayo, welcome to Africa 24.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you back to our channel. So let's talk about the Global African concept. What is it all about to you?
No, the Global Africa concept draws from our intra-African trade strategy. In 2016, we developed a strategy to promote, finance, and facilitate intra-African trade. The definition of intra-African trade for us at the bank, even at that time, was trade between and amongst African countries, or trade between Africa and its citizens in the diaspora. From there, we started implementing that strategy. We pulled out a number of strategies associated with it, and one of them was the diaspora strategy, linking it to our intra-African trade strategy. So we defined intra-African trade with an N, intra-African. What then that meant was that we will intervene, promote, facilitate, finance, and bring our interventions to bear and to the benefit of Africans wherever they are, whether they're on the continent of Africa or whether they are abroad. That's the concept. And it speaks to a unified Africa. It speaks to an empowered African. It speaks also a shared history. It speaks to a shared purpose. It speaks to a shared future.
All right. Thank you very much. What made the 2024 edition of Afrexim AM theme timely in the context where we want to develop intra-African trade and at the same time foster trade with the Caribbean?
No, take that again.
So I will take that again, sorry. What made the 2024 edition of Afreximbank AM theme timely in the context where we try to develop intra-African trade and at the same time foster trade with the Caribbean?
Because in our minds, as I explained earlier, intra-African trade includes the Caribbean. But let me say here that we have what we also call the Africa-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum, which is part of our annual meetings this year. But over the past 2-3 years, we've always had an Africa-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum, Trade and Investment Forum, where we're looking to facilitate, where we're looking to support the connection between African businesses, African public and private sector, to the Caribbean. And that's why we were one of the reasons we hold in those forums, because we needed to foster the connection. We need to foster the businesses. We even introduced an Afro-Caribbean Business Council. And so this here coming to the Bahamas is also inconsistent with the programs we have in the Africa-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum. The first one held in 2022 in Bridgetown, Barbados. The second one held in Guyana, which was last year. And this is holding in the Bahamas. And what we want to see through this forum is investment exchange, is cultural exchange, is trade exchange, is linkages, to foster trade between ourselves and our friends and our brothers and sisters, businesses. That connection needed to be made so that trade can occur, so that businesses can be done, so that we can foster investment opportunities.
During these annual meetings, there was a key concept that came up, factoring. What is it all about?
So factoring and I must start by saying that the bank has been working with the Global Association for Factoring for some time now. It's called FCI. It is, for over the years, we've been on their board. Up until last year, President Orama was on the board. I took over as also I was elected onto the board, representing what we call the affiliate members. Factoring is an alternative trade finance instrument that supports SMEs, such that SMEs can have access to financing without the need for collateral. Most times, when SMEs working, banks deal with collateral, they deal with financial statements, you need to bring rigorous, documentation to banks. But statistics show that, about 50%, that is in Africa, of SMEs who walk into the banks, who walk into the banking halls of banks asking for loans will be rejected. So this deals with those pains and the gaps created. The SME gap, which is in our continent, is over $300 billion, deals with the gap of SMEs because It discounts their receivables that after they have performed, on whatever contract it is, it discounts their receivables, and the banks or the businesses that are factoring companies look to the receivables rather than asking for other tangible collateral.
All right. CANEX is set to take place in Algiers in October 2024. What are your expectations for that edition?
Before I answer the question, I would like to complete the statement on factoring. And the reason we brought it to the Caribbean is because we note that there is lack of information and limited awareness of factoring even in the Caribbean. That was the case with Africa. So what we tried to do over the years, aside from providing financing to factoring businesses, is to create awareness and build capacity in that sector. So this was our first foray yesterday of introducing factoring into the Caribbean community. And that's because, we also note that there is need to create awareness, to create information, and as well as also to build capacity. And that's that was the thrust of yesterday's. It was like a seed being sown that we're hoping will germinate. There are several other things we do in that space, and in that factoring event, it was attended by the Central Bank Governor of the Bahamas, and apparently there are also some steps that have been being taken, especially in terms of collateral registry. However, they appreciated the fact that we came, and we're trying to use that platform, use the regulators to be able to also push a factoring law.
We hope that the best will come out of it. So let's come now to the question on CANEX, which is set to take place in Algiers in October 2024. What are your expectations for that edition?
No, well, the CANEX itself, speaks to, again, to promote, facilitate, and support the creative and cultural industries in how many verticals: sports, music, fashion, arts and crafts, gastronomy, literature. And the reason behind that is that we want to commercialize the huge talents, and the demographics, the young people, commercialize those talents, and to support the young ones, the youth, of us, in Africa and the Caribbean, so that they can, we can support their talents, we can create opportunities for market access, we can create opportunities to create the gaps that are existing in the industry, seek how they can promote financing and access to financing. You will probably know that our CANEX strategy is underpinned by $1 billion facility that can be deployed in the form of debt, equity, and also risk-bearing instruments, guarantees, and what have you. Aside from the financing and bringing financial institutions together to support the creative and advocating for more support, we expect that we'll also use it to do capacity building, because it's one of the gaps in the creative industry is lack of skills, and capacity. We continue to run master classes in various fairs. These things go on even after besides the events. We also want to use it as a platform to enable market access, such that we expose our creatives to brands abroad in the place of fashion, to expose them to investments, attraction opportunities, joint venture arrangements, venture capital, as it were. It's also a place to express their talents.
Talking about talents, there's something critical that happened also during these meetings. You had an important meeting on women empowerment on the sidelines of this 2024 edition of Afreximbank annual meetings. In your opinion, what are the sectors in which women need to be encouraged today? One second.
My simple answer to that question is that empowering women and having a dedicated program for women is that the global Africa concept, just as I've talked about the young with the youth, needs to be inclusive.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Kanayo. Here comes the end of this interview. Thank you for watching it. Please stay tuned to our programs.